Ash Hollow, Kentucky, was a quiet farming community in 1834. The land was full of rolling fields, and the river ran slow and silver under the morning sun. In a small wooden cabin at the edge of the hollow, Ellen Walker gave birth to twins, Mary and Jonathan. The midwife swore she'd never seen children like them. Both were born with startlingly clear blue eyes that seemed almost too knowing for newborns. "They look right through me," she muttered nervously. Their father, Thomas, a hard-working farmer, laughed it off, but Ellen noticed something different. Even as infants, the twins behaved strangely. They rarely cried for food or warmth. Instead, they would stare at each other for long stretches, their tiny faces locked in silent exchange, as if speaking without words. Ellen sometimes woke at night to find both of them awake, gazing at each other in the dark. It unsettled her, but deep inside, she felt it wasn't evil, only unusual. From the very beginning, it seemed the twins carried something heavy inside them, a secret the world wasn't ready to hear. By the time Mary and Jonathan were 6, they were inseparable. They roamed the cornfields barefoot, their laughter echoing against the hills. But strange moments followed them everywhere. One day, while their father was sharpening tools by the barn, Mary tugged his sleeve. "Papa, don't go into the field today." The ox will kick. Thomas frowned but laughed it off. Later that afternoon, the ox startled and lashed out, missing his head by inches. On another occasion, Jonathan calmly told their neighbor's daughter, "You'll find your doll under the haystack." She ran off and returned moments later, wide-eyed and clutching the missing toy. The children weren't guessing. They knew. But what should have been wondrous quickly became frightening. Neighbors whispered behind calloused hands, "Those Walker twins, they see too much." Some said it was the devil's touch, others that they were prophets. In a place where superstition mixed with religion, knowing too much was dangerous. That summer, a traveling preacher came riding into Ash Hollow. His black coat hung heavy, and his face was carved with sternness. He wasted no time setting up sermons under the oak tree in the town square. He spoke with fire. "Beware of false prophets. Beware of children of darkness who trick the faithful with lies and unnatural knowing." People nodded, murmuring. The preacher's words poured oil on the sparks of suspicion already smoldering around the twins. When Ellen brought the children into town for supplies, the preacher's eyes landed on them. His gaze lingered sharp and cold, as if weighing their souls. Mary hid behind her mother's dress, while Jonathan clenched his tiny fists. Ellen felt her heart tremble. She knew that man's words could turn the whole town against her children. The twins always wanted to help, though. Their gift didn't feel like a burden to them. It felt natural, like breathing. One warm morning, as Farmer Griggs loaded hay onto his wagon, Jonathan called out, "Don't take the west road today. A tree will fall." The farmer chuckled. "What do you children know about roads and trees?" He cracked his whip and rode off. Hours later, the sound of splintering wood echoed through the hollow. A mighty oak crashed across the west road, smashing his wagon. Though Griggs survived, his pride did not. Instead of thanking the twins, he stormed to town. "Them Walker children cursed me. They said it and it happened." His voice fueled fear, and fear spread quickly. From then on, the twins' warnings were treated with suspicion. The more they knew, the more people feared them. It was late autumn when fire lit the horizon. A barn belonging to the Miller family went up in flames, the crackle of burning wood filling the night. Villagers rushed to form a bucket line, desperate to save what they could. As they worked, Mary whispered to Jonathan, "It wasn't an accident. It was Caleb Miller." He left the lantern burning. The next day, when the town gathered to mourn the loss, Jonathan blurted, "It wasn't lightning. It was Caleb." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Caleb, a boy of 12, turned pale. His father struck the ground with his fist. "How could you know that?" he demanded. The twins had no answer. Their truth only deepened mistrust. From that night, even children avoided them. whispering cruel names as they passed. Cursed ones, witch twins. Ellen Walker's heart ached. She watched her children grow more isolated, burdened by the gift they could not hide. One night, she sat them by the fire. "My darlings," she said softly, "knowledge is a heavy stone, too heavy for children to carry in the open. Sometimes, when you know something, you must hold it quietly or people will be afraid." "But Mama," Mary argued, "if we can help, why should we be silent?" Ellen's eyes glistened with tears. "Because the world fears what it cannot understand, and fear makes good people cruel." The twins nodded, but they struggled to obey. Knowing felt too natural to bury. One afternoon, while wandering near the riverbank, the twins spotted a ragged boy crouched by the reeds. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with dirt. His eyes were wild with fear. "You're running," Jonathan said softly. The boy froze. "How do you know?" "Because you're headed north," Mary whispered, "and your master was cruel." The boy's lips trembled, but he didn't deny it. The twins gave him a hunk of bread from their satchel and pointed toward a safer path. "Stay off the main road," Jonathan warned. "Men will be looking for you." The boy's eyes filled with gratitude. "Why are you helping me?" Mary only smiled. "Because we can." That night, as they lay in bed, she whispered to Jonathan, "We saved him." And for the first time, their knowing felt like a blessing. When word spread that the twins had aided a runaway, Ash Hollow split in two. Some whispered admiration. "Those children have brave hearts." Maybe God speaks through them. Others hissed in anger. They meddled where they shouldn't. Helping runaways brings trouble. Tensions thickened like storm clouds. Even in church, whispers buzzed louder than hymns. The preacher's sermons became sharper. Sin wears many masks. Do not be deceived by sweet faces and clever words. The twins had become the Hollow's greatest debate. Were they blessings or burdens? One crisp evening, Jonathan stood in the field, eyes fixed on the horizon. "The river will rise tomorrow," he murmured, "higher than it ever has." Mary added, "It will flood the barns by nightfall." They told their parents, then warned the neighbors, but most laughed. "Children playing prophets again," they scoffed. The next day, rain poured down in sheets. By dusk, the river swelled, tearing through fences and drowning crops. Families who had mocked the twins lost livestock and grain, while the few who listened saved much of what they had. Fear deepened. If the children's words could bend the future like this, were they truly human? After the flood, the preacher wasted no time. He climbed the pulpit, his voice like thunder. "Do you not see? These children divide us. They stir fear, envy, and suspicion. What comes from God brings peace, but what comes from darkness brings confusion. These twins are not a blessing. They are a test we must not fail." The congregation shifted uneasily. Some nodded in agreement. Others lowered their eyes, unsure. That evening, the preacher called for a town meeting. The matter was clear. The community must decide the fate of the Walker twins. As Ellen held her children close, her heart hammered in dread. She knew the vote could change everything. That night, Ash Hollow buzzed with unease. A town meeting had been called for the following evening, and rumors ran like wildfire. Some said the twins would be banished. Others whispered darker threats, that they might not be allowed to live among decent folk at all. In their small cabin, Ellen sat with her children by the fire. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she brushed Mary's hair back from her eyes. "You mustn't be afraid," she told them softly, though her voice broke. Mary reached for Jonathan's hand. "If they make us leave," she said firmly, "we'll go together." Jonathan squeezed her hand, his eyes brimming with tears. "We'll find a place where knowing isn't a curse." But as the fire crackled, both children gazed into the flames and felt something deeper. They loved Ash Hollow, their home, the hills, even the people who hated them. Leaving would mean losing part of themselves. That night, the twins made a silent pact. Whatever the town decided, they would face it side by side. The town meeting filled the little chapel to bursting. Farmers, mothers, children, everyone came, their faces tense in the lantern light. The preacher stood at the front, his shadow tall against the wall. "These children," he thundered, "have brought division and unrest. We must choose. Will Ash Hollow be guided by God, or will we let ourselves be led by unnatural voices?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ellen's heart pounded as she clutched her twins to her side. Then, an old man rose from the back. Samuel Carter, one of the town's most respected elders, leaned on his cane as he made his way forward. His voice cracked, but carried weight. "I've lived in this hollow all my life," he said. "I've seen hardship and I've seen blessings. Those children," he pointed to the twins, "have saved lives. They warned us of the flood. They've kept us from harm. Must every gift from God fit neatly into our hands before we believe it?" His words hung heavy. Some nodded, some frowned. The preacher scowled. When the vote was called, the result shocked everyone, split exactly in half. No clear answer. For the first time, Ash Hollow was frozen between faith and fear. Frustrated, the preacher demanded a trial. "If these children's gift is from heaven, let them prove it before all. If not, we'll know the truth." The crowd murmured agreement. Ellen wanted to protest, but Mary and Jonathan stepped forward. Their eyes held no fear. Jonathan lifted his chin. "We will tell you something now. Tomorrow, before the sun sets, a rider will arrive. No one expects him, but he will bring news that will change everything." Laughter broke out. "A rider? News?" Some scoffed. The preacher sneered. "And if no such rider comes?" "Then you may cast us out," Mary answered quietly. Gasps swept the room. Ellen clutched them, but it was too late. The test had been set. The next day, Ash Hollow was restless. Men loitered by the roads, women whispered in doorways, children pointed at the twins. As the sun dipped lower, the preacher smirked, already tasting victory. Then, just as shadows stretched long, the sound of hoofbeats echoed through the hollow. Heads turned. A lone rider appeared, his horse lathered with sweat. He dismounted, his face grave. "Cholera has struck the next town," he warned. "Dozens are dead already. The sickness spreads fast. You must prepare." The crowd gasped. The twins' words had come true. Even the preacher fell silent, his face pale. In that moment, fear turned to awe. Whatever the twins carried, it was real, and it could no longer be denied. Cholera was a word that froze hearts. Families rushed to shutter homes, cover wells, and boil water. Prayers filled the chapel, and whispers filled the streets. For once, people sought out the twins. "What do we do?" mothers begged. "How can we keep our children safe?" The preacher still tried to fight it. "Do not trust them," he warned. But his voice had lost some of its thunder. The twins, though frightened themselves, spoke with calm certainty. "Keep your water clean. Do not gather in crowds. Care for the weak." Their words, though simple, carried hope, and in fear, hope was a precious thing. That night Mary tossed in bed, whispering to her brother, "I know who will fall sick first." Jonathan turned to her, his face pale. "I know too." It was not just storms or floods anymore. Their knowing had sharpened. They could sense sickness like a shadow creeping over the town. For the first time, their gift felt like a weight too heavy to bear. "Should we tell them?" Mary asked. Jonathan shook his head. "If we do, they'll fear us more. But we can help quietly." And so, for the first time, the twins carried their gift not as a warning, but as a secret burden. As cholera spread, the twins guided their mother in quiet ways. They told her which homes to visit with herbs, which families needed food brought secretly to their doors, which children must be moved away before sickness reached them. Ellen did as they asked, never questioning how they knew. Slowly, lives were saved. When families recovered, gratitude spread. The walkers helped us, people whispered. Few knew it was the twins guiding it all, but a change was stirring. Where once there had been only suspicion, now there was quiet reverence. Some began to call them not cursed, but blessed. Irony is cruel. Weeks later, it was the preacher himself who fell ill. Struck by fever, he lay pale and sweating, his strong voice reduced to a whisper. The town gathered, uncertain. Should they help the man who had turned them against the twins? Some muttered that it was God's justice, but the twins stepped forward. Mary knelt by his bedside. He must be given clean water, rest, and prayers, if you wish. Jonathan added softly, "He will survive, if you care for him." The people obeyed. Slowly, the preacher recovered. When he opened his eyes and saw the twins at his side, he wept. For the first time, he saw not curses, but mercy. By winter's end, the cholera had passed. Ash Hollow, though scarred, had survived. One Sunday, the preacher stood before the congregation. His voice was gentler now, stripped of pride. "I judged what I did not understand," he said. "I let fear rule me. But these children—" He paused, his eyes softening toward Mary and Jonathan. "They showed mercy when I gave none. Perhaps their gift is not ours to question, but ours to cherish." A hush fell over the chapel. For the first time, the twins felt not stares of suspicion, but gazes of respect. The hollow had been changed, by fear, by sickness, and most of all, by two children who knew too much. Years passed, and the twins grew. They still walked the hills together, still shared silent looks no one else could understand. One quiet evening, Mary sat with their mother by the fire. "Mama," she whispered, "our knowing doesn't come from magic or darkness." Jonathan nodded. "It comes from listening. To the earth, to the wind, to people's hearts. We hear what others don't, that is all." Ellen smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Then use it well, my darlings." And they did. For though the world outside Ash Hollow might never understand them, the twins learned the greatest truth of all. Knowing too much is not a curse. It is a call to love more deeply, to help more bravely, and to forgive more freely. Their story became legend, told in hushed voices and fireside tales. And those who heard it carried away not fear, but hope. That sometimes the very things we fear most may be the gifts that save us.